All right, so thanks for joining the product training webinar on procedures. We are going to begin. Here's a little bit of the agenda. We'll begin with introductions and housekeeping. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Mel Motosh, and I am the product enablement manager here, responsible for a lot of the educational content that you see and use. My coworker is Genesis DePaula. He'll be joining me today and running the Q&A section. Genesis is well versed in the CMMS world, and him and I have been working together for a while, so he's definitely a great colleague to work with. So the two of us are going to take you through about 30 to 45 minutes today of a webinar. Um, we do have this recorded, so for those of you that are attending, great, you'll get a copy. For those of you that couldn't make it, thank you for registering. We will also send those people a recording as well. Um, Q&A section, you'll notice in your Zoom menu bar. So throw your questions in there, and I'm really going to try and get to the majority of them towards the end. But like I said, Genesis will be in there helping out, and I will go over some of those questions towards the end. What we're going to do is we're going to define procedures and why they're important for you to make use of in ClickMate or your CMMS program. Then I will demonstrate. So I'm going to go into some of the admin settings that you should determine for those of you that are admins what you'll want to turn on so you can get this feature functioning well in ClickMate. Then I'm going to demonstrate what do those procedures look like, how do we create them, how do we edit them, and ultimately how do you add them to your work orders so that your technicians can get to that consistency and mark some of these items off. I will demonstrate that in both the desktop and the mobile, and then I'll remind you how you can connect with our amazing support team. So, that being said, I'm going to get started and let's jump into the desktop app. So, anyone that is an admin, or actually, basically, let's jump into the definition first. So, what exactly is a procedure? We added some procedures a couple months ago and we updated it with a couple new data items that you can add to your procedures. But as you can see on my screen here, a procedure is it's a step-by-step set of instructions that you helps how to safely and consistently perform specific technical tasks. So it's really useful if you want your team to be in sync or to include a very specific procedure. It basically harmonizes a process such as your lockout, tagout, or anything for safety measures. So the key components of creating a procedure is to include, make sure it includes structure, purpose, application, and this can be for both your reactive or your preventive work orders. So consistency is really key, and if you want to ensure that you're going to have to create a procedure, we suggest you do. Common steps that are included on procedures are anything for preparation, how that procedure is executed, any documentation that you want you or your team to take note of, and verifying. Now, as I mentioned, consistency is key with procedures. You want these procedures to follow specific tasks. So this will help you ensure minimal unplanned downtime. This is going to be cost saving. This will enhance your safety and compliance, extend your asset life, and it's also important because it's operational efficiency. Like I said, consistency across the board. So let's get into that. And I'm going to first show you what is needed by admin users to get the ball rolling. Anyone that is an admin, when you log into the system, main menu on the left, you're going to have access to admin settings. Admin settings, manage modules. You will want to go to the work orders module. There is a tab there that you can toggle on or off if you would like procedures visible on your work order form. That goes for both your reactive or your preventive. So if you even want to introduce procedures to your system, you have to make sure that it is visible on your form. The second decision that an admin is going to make is this here. Requires comments for work orders with incomplete procedure. What that means is if you create a procedure and add it to either your reactive or your preventive work order, and it does not get completed by your technician, would you require them to add a comment, basically to encourage on the work order form why, say, certain items or steps could not be marked off within that procedure process that you're creating? So it's a simple toggle on or off. Okay, and that must be done by admins. If you allow these procedures in your system, notice that there is a procedures model there, but I'm going to jump to work orders and just demonstrate what that procedure would look like. So I do have an existing work order here. It is a PM and it is for a monthly air handler unit. When I open up that work order, I have a procedures section. And previous to right now, I created a monthly air handler unit procedure template. This is multiple items to make sure that my team has checked off. In this case, I've used check marks as an example, but by clicking on this, it allows me to see items that have been checked off and what still needs to be completed. Okay, so that's how your procedures will look on the work order form. All right. Now, how do we create a procedure? This is what your teammates, technicians would be seeing. And for example, in this case, I have marked off a couple of these items, and I'd like to mark off a couple more so that they can keep going with this set of tasks. Now, to create a procedure and add something like this to your work order, you would go to your procedures model. Procedures are created by admins, technicians can add and mark off these items. But here's a list of the templates that I have previously created. Okay, so I'll give you another example. I've got a lockout tagout. These are some of the details that I've included. Okay. And I can click on the procedures button. And the first thing I'm going to do is give my template a name. This is what you'll be selecting and what will be visible on the drop down. So for example, maybe I'd like to, I'm going to create a procedure kind of follow up to say a lockout tagout where I'm going to title it equipment startup. And my description is post inspection procedure. And I'll save that. And now once I save that, this is where I'm going to start to add my new items or any item to this. So when I click on new item, I'm going to give my first task that needs to be marked off a name. In this case, I'm going to indicate that I'm going to paste this on your confirm work is complete. And the type of data I would like to receive, in this example, I'm going to select the checkbox and I'll save that. And I'd like a second item to my procedure for startup is that I've made sure I removed all tools and materials. And again, I'm going to select the checkbox for this. I'll hit save and we'll add one more checkbox item. And I'm going to copy this and paste and say checkbox, and I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to add one final item type. I'm going to ask for a signature required. Oops. And that would be the type that I'm going to add, and I'm going to hit save. So I have just created a template, and I'm going to go and hit save, and I'll close this out. Notice that that jumps to my list there in alphabetical order. Now I can see that this is currently not attached to any work order or any regularly scheduled PMs. Let me note that I'd like to also include a date to this, that maybe, there's some more information I'd like to gather when this procedure is added. So I'll just click on the name, like any name field. When you click on the name, it opens it up. And if you have the right role, you would have access to the edit button. And I'm going to add an additional item that is date completed. I'd like an exact date, and that is going to be the other item that I'd like to collect, and hit save. Now, let me point out that you can click and drag these items around into different orders if you wish. Okay. I can also click on edit in each unique one, in each item to maybe add more details or information. So anytime you make modifications, you just want to make sure you hit save. We're pretty consistent with editing buttons, save buttons in the program to cancel out and close as well. So here's all my information on my template. I'm going to hit save. And now I have this template that I can attach to any work order. I'm also going to point out that when you create a procedure, this is a global feature, meaning for any of you that have multiple entities. And what I mean by that is if you, in your main menu there, click on the name of your entity, building, facility, we use the term entity. This procedure will be accessible in each one of these. Again, consistency is key, right? You want to have that same structured information, so to make sure that your teams are gathering the exact same info. That also being said, if a procedure is removed or edited from here, this is kind of accessible, like I said, to all those entities. And for example, if I go into my education entity, I would have the same procedures there. If I go into my manufacturing entity, I would have my exact same procedures there. Now, I'll go back into my demo entity, and I'm going to go to my work orders module. And I'm going to go to an existing work order. I've got this conveyor belt that has buckled, and it's a new work order. And I'm going to add a procedure to this. So there's the template. There's the procedure that I just created. Let's throw this lockout tagout procedure in there. Select add procedure. Now I can view if any items have been done, but for a technician to actually mark these procedures off, they would click the view procedures button, and here is where they would respond. I'm going to demonstrate obviously this in the desktop. I'll get into the mobile in moments as well. But in my lockout tagout, I have a procedure that is asking for an asset name or location, and I'll say that that conveyor belt buckled on line 1. And this is also asked to create a drop down. So one of the items that you can add is your own customized drop down of information. I'll say that, this was an electrical. Now here I've got my check items, okay, that I can check off. When I scroll down, this is a date item that I've decided to collect. And we'll use today's date and today's time. Uh, and signature. I've got a signature in this one, and I'm going to add that. Now, anytime these items are checked off, I want you to notice that it's auto saving. You're not going to see the completed button until all of these items are marked off. So the items I've completed about 3 or 4 of these, they're auto saving. I'm just going to close my procedure window. That takes me back to my work order. And now I can see the items that I've logged and the answers on the right-hand side there. So there's my signature, there's the dates. It looks like I filled in about 5 of those in that procedure. Okay. So if I wanted to go and close this work order right now, I've got a setting on that when I hit the completed button, I'm going to get a notice saying incompleted procedure, add comment. That means that I would have to scroll to the bottom of my work order and add a comment, basically to encourage why this information is, or my lockout tagout has not been completed. So you add that I'm going to say some steps not needed, for example, and I save my comment. Notice that my notification is removed and I could go ahead and hit the completed button. Another thing I do want to point out is that within your procedure, before I close this out, notice that there is comment fields associated to each item. So that is different compared to closing the whole work order. If there is specific information that you want to associate to this procedure here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to add this one now and say, yeah, this was restored. I got this done at 10:30. I'm going to add a comment. I'm even going to say, all done, completed. And I can upload an image to go with that. So there's my new belt. We'll attach that. I'll hit save. So comments can be added to each item. Again, it's going to auto save, but until all of these are marked off, that completed button would not show up. So I'm going to close this. I have my comment there. I would be able to complete, but that's just making use of the comment specific to each procedure. Now I can go and add another procedure to this. Maybe some of you are wondering, well, I've got my lockout tagout. Now maybe I want to add that equipment startup that I just created. Yes, you can have multiple. Okay, it's the exact same steps. I could view my procedures, confirm work is completed, remove tools and materials, restart, add my signature. I'm going to throw my date in there. And I've completed all these. Notice that my complete button is visible, and I'll mark that as done. Okay. Now, me as an admin, let's say that I did not want to add that starter procedure. I can click on this and reopen it. And if I reopen it, then I can also remove that procedure from the work order. So those have to do with user role settings. Admins can remove that. Let's say, for example, you add the wrong one or whatnot. So I've added this to an existing work order. When you create a work order, whether it's a reactive or a preventive, I'm going to say that we have a walkthrough. Okay, and it's a daily and check several, for another industry, you might want to say check several doors or access points or whatnot. Now, at the time you create a work order, absolutely. Remember, we made that procedures visible so that admins, you're allowed to go ahead and add that procedure on the work orders. Admins allowed that field visible. Uh, I'll select that procedure. Again, if it's a one-time reactive, that would be visible. If it's a preventive, that means that every time this work order generates, that procedure would be included on the work order form. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll say this is every day, uh, Monday through Friday. We're going to start today and we're going to give it a couple hours to complete and hit save. So when I create my PM and I've got my new daily walkthrough, we can see that my procedure, when this work order generates, that procedure will always be included and it'll be a list of items that my team has to check off. Okay, so we've talked about creating a procedure template. We've talked about editing the template. Oh, next thing I want to bring up is if you edit something on here right now, for example, if I go and edit my equipment startup, this will roll forward with anything new. It is not going to edit anything previous to now that already exists. So it's any edits to your procedure templates will always be moving forward. Okay. And I should also note that for some reason, if you wanted to delete as an admin, again, I can go ahead and delete that procedure. Right. Now, let's jump into what this would look like on a mobile device for technicians. I also want to note that procedures is a module in the desktop. It's a module that primarily admin users are creating. You do not have a procedures module in the mobile. Basically, what it is remember that the mobile is really geared for technicians to get to the work orders and get to the information that needs to be done on the work orders themselves. So procedures must be created at the desktop so that they can be used on your work orders for your technicians in the mobile app. And give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and set my mobile up to display. And let's see. Okay, 1 second here. And I'm going to make sure 8 4. Okay, so I have logged into the ClickMate app. Another thing I'm going to suggest is make sure that you and your team do updates to the app every so often. You always want our best version, right? So we do updates often. Go make sure you go to the app store that you're using and update. The latest that you should all have right now is 1.18.2. When you log in, I'm just going to point out that I'm logged in as a technician user and I'm going to go to my work orders. So because this is assigned to me, I'm going to see primarily my active work orders, anything to the text there. And there's that conveyor belt. So let's take a look at what that looks like. There's the details. Remember the status is across the top, but the gray section in the mobile app is what's important. If there are any procedures or checklists, you'll have a number, which reminds me, what's the difference between a procedure and a checklist? A checklist is going to be, let me demo this in here. A checklist, pardon me. A checklist is going to be items that strictly can be crossed off, whereas procedures allow you to gather different points of data. And we're going to send you all, our guide that gives you all the examples. Actually, let me show you one in here right now that gives complete examples of every type of procedure we have. So where's my, there we go. So this is what all the different items would look like. Here's an example. You can create checklists. You can create a date example. You can have a inspection. So do you want your team to pass, flag, fail? Do you want your team to attach an image? This is something that we just released, I think recently, a couple days ago. Multiple choice. This is the one that you make up, okay, when you're creating your template. Signature, is that somebody to sign? Is that required? Text, which is basically a free field to enter your own data, or we have a yes, no, not available. So these are the different items. So you can see the difference between a checklist and procedure is that checklist is just items that you strictly want crossed off, whereas procedures allows you to gather a lot more information. Okay, so back to the mobile here. Um, Procedures, oops, is I've got my list of procedures here. This is what it would look like to your technicians, similar to the desktop, that when I tap on show more, it's going to show me the procedures that I've completed. So remember earlier, I took a signature, I put some dates in there, I wanted to check off certain items. I can see my answers to the right, and the check marks signify, which ones have been done. If I want to continue to edit this, then I would click on View Procedures to open up that form, and this is where I continue to enter my responses. So I'll check that item off. And maybe I want to add another signature here and comment on that. I want to take a picture to go with it. So I'm going to grab my camera and I'll take a picture of my screen. In this example, use photo and add my comments, hit save. So now I have additional comments added to a task. Okay, and I can see the ones that I have checked off, and I'll go back. Now I've got more items there. Show less will collapse your procedures. Show more in the app are going to show you what's been done. But for your team to edit, they will have to click on the view procedure and make changes. Same rules are going to apply to this. If I go to complete this work order, at the top and I do not have my procedures all checked off, a comment would be required. Okay. So I did put a comment in there previously. That means I've closed out that work order. But my monthly, for example, I've got 32 items there for my monthly HVAC or air handler inspection. If I go to close this one, okay, it's notifying me that a comment is required in order to complete. All right. Now, the other question that I'm thinking you guys would have is on a work order. If you print a work order, will you be able to see this information? Absolutely. So if you have procedures, I just gave it a refresh there, but if you do have any procedures that have been marked off, let's go to that one I just closed. Let's clear all this and find my completed work orders here. And I want to go to that conveyor belt one. So when I click on the name of it to open it up, on the top right, I'm going to export this as a PDF and my procedure information will be included. So that's going to download onto my computer and I'll hit print. And let's open that page up and see what that looks like. So there's the work order. All images are included, and there's my procedures. So perfect for any audits, comments, images. The comments for each item in your procedure, or you can see are included as well. All right. I believe that about covers it. We're good for time, 10:30 here. So I just am going to take us back to this slide and let's get to some of those questions that you have. Q&A. I'm going to take a look in here and give me a second. All right. So I do have a question about somebody was asking again about procedures global. Yes, absolutely. Procedures are global. If you recall, if you create a procedure in one entity, that means that it's going to be the same details in each entity. So, admins, you want to be careful if you are even deleting or removing that's system wide. Okay, procedures are the one module that we have currently that affect is a system-wide decision. Okay. Let's see what else. Let's see here. Uh, is there a way to have, let's see, just looking at my questions here. If I edit a procedure, will it change existing work orders? Again, yeah. If I go into this and or I believe you're asking about procedures here. If you edit a procedure here, okay, and you make changes, we're going to add another item to my fire safety procedure. Um, I would say date, log. We're going to grab a date item and I hit save. And I'm going to save this again. If this was attached to any work order or PM, the previous ones would not have those changes. That would be anything moving forward. Okay. Let's see what else. If you, let's see, we'll look through the list. Can we create, can we create a list of tasks to choose from when creating or editing work orders similar to procedures? Yeah, if I understand the question correctly, can we create a list of tasks to choose from when creating or editing? There's absolutely, let me demonstrate in this one. This has a sample of each one. Again, I'll show you what that looks like. These are the different items. Oh, these are completed. Give me one sec here. Let's go to our open work orders. And I would like to weekly inspection. I'm going to add. Now here's a demo of all items. I believe this is what you're asking. All items that can be included. And again, we'll send you the guide on all of this information that I'm talking about, but these are the different types that you can add to your procedure. Okay. Are there limits to the amount of procedure? In your procedures module, no, not for any users to add to your work order. I have not heard of any procedure, any maximum amount to add. Okay. And some of you might have been using procedures. Last week I think it was last week, we just came out with the signature one, the comments to add to each item. That's new. And then the file, which is images files. If you just want your team to walk around, take an image as one of your items on your procedure list and attach it, that was one of the items that we just released last week as well. Okay. What else? Somebody's asking about printing. Yes. Can you add pictures to specific procedures, work orders, PMs? Yeah, there's a lot of pictures, and I think that's why people are taking to the mobile app so much is everybody's got a camera now, right? With your tablet or your mobile device. So a reminder that when you're creating a work order in the system, you can add an image that will go with that. Um, when you are making a comment, you can add an image that will go with that. When you are collecting items on your procedures, whether it's strictly that that's exactly what you're looking for is that item, a file or an image to go with it, or the comments to it. So yeah, there's lots of places to add that. And like I said, what's nice about that is that when you print it, all of those details. There's the image that I attached to the original work order. There's the comments that I added to my procedure items. So printing it out, like I said, great for auditing. So much easier to attach a picture than to type things out, especially if everybody has a camera with them these days. So, all right. Well, I am going to remind everyone that there are multiple ways to get a hold of our team. If questions come up, that we have a support team that you can connect with us while you're in the app. If you click on this button, send us a message that goes to this chat where our team will return your message. If you're not logged in, it's also sent to your email. So throw your questions in there and we'll be sure to get back to you. You can also email us support@clickmate.com. We've got a phone line there. Uh, Articles and videos. A reminder that I will send you this video with the articles that you'll need on the admins there and the initial setting up procedures, how to create them, how to edit them, how to delete them, how to add them to your work orders and continue to keep an eye out and join us for any future webinars on some of our new features. Thank you for joining me today. Stay well. Take care.